All right, good morning, everybody. My name is TJ Curtis. I hope everybody can hear me. I am the family training coordinator with the Workforce Development, Families Together in New York, and assisting and co-presenting with me. I'll let them introduce themselves as Ashley and Christy.
Hi, I'm Christy. If you didn't hear, I am in upstate New York, a little bit east of Rochester, and I have three grown children. I've been a credentialed peer for 8-ish years, I think, and I'm happy everybody's here.
I,
Ashley.
I'm Susan Watkins. I am a peer advocate at Catholic Charities. Been doing this for about 2 years and looking to add this family peer advocacy to my background.
Thank you. Ashley Sindoni. You want to introduce yourself?
Oh, her computer froze.
Oh, okay, that's what happened. Anyways,
Yep.
so Ashley's our other training coordinator, if I'm correct. And if for the title. And she also lives upstate, not far from Chrissy. And she, like myself, four kids. Been in this work for some time, and a pleasure to be here. So today's topic is the dangers of passive screen time, and this is one of these things that we are seeing, especially since the pandemic, and what it looks like helping our families when we're dealing with children who are continuously involved being in front of a screen. So, how do FPAs help families create healthy technology habits? Because as we also start seeing nowadays, a lot of the times families might just utilize the tablet as it shuts them up so you can work kind of thing, and it's breeding particular habits. So our learning objectives, we will define passive and active screen time because not all technology is bad, right? We will also show how passive screen time affects the child's development and mental health because there's a number of studies showing the decline in attention and increased behaviors as we have seen. We will recognize and the impacts on the family relationship and communication. As many of you are aware, just basics. A lot of children have trouble making eye contact. A lot of them don't even go out and hang out with their friends anymore. Everything is done through technology. We're going to discuss the warning signs of the excessive screen use. And then we're going to create and think about ways to support families in creating healthy technology boundaries. And then and contact families with the proper resources when and if necessary. So, an icebreaker. Anybody could come off and put in the chat real fast. What screens do you use most often each day? I bet you 99% will say your phone. And most other people might have other items. So, how much time do you estimate do you spend on your screen outside of work, though?
That's not a safe question, TJ.
Oh no, it's a very safe
I'm
question.
kidding.
It's definitely going to be. I feel attacked questions.
Just at me. Um, Personally, for me, probably sometimes up to like 4 hours.
Is it usually consistently that 4 hour window, or does it just fluctuate and it's just going to be 4 hours?
It fluctuates for like a total of 4 hours, and then depending sort of on like if I'm busy or not.
Some of us do.
Same,
I'm saying.
same, about 4 hours. I can go in and out. I convinced myself that it's since I was an avid reader that this has taken the place of books and or reading magazines and or reading newspapers. So that's how I justified my screen time. Like I'm just doing what I would normally do. It's just now it's technology.
So I don't
See,
count Kindle time like for reading.
yeah, I was going to say that if it for me, if especially if it's educational or if it's is something that's not really that's a healthy passive, if you will. It's not necessarily dissociating yourself from the world. It's not hiding from everything else that might be around you, um, or taking place of awkward interventions with possible encounters.
Yeah.
And then we have when we're working with our families, what challenges do families share about technology use, if any?
What I think I saw most often was either the whole family wasn't interacting as much because everybody was on their screens, and also trying to limit screen time with like their youth and some of the behaviors that maybe would come up because of that.
It's funny.
Mimi.
I work in juvenile justice, and I've had parents banned from voluntary facilities because they got caught sneaking cell phones to their kids.
I've seen that too, working in residential. Mimi?
So to answer what screens I use the most often, I would say I also use my television, but I only probably outside of work limit myself honestly to an hour because I'm pretty active and I turn my phone off and I happily leave both of my phones at home. Personally, I just can't do it. But for families with technology use, a lot of the times when I'm trying to work collaboratively with like a family member or a youth, I sometimes find that the parents like disengaged because sometimes if they have other children in the household, they're like checking their phone because their other child is texting them or things like that. And so the conversation doesn't feel as connected, or I feel like even sometimes their child does the same thing in response. And so like a parent's literally sitting there trying to have an intimate conversation with me and their child to bring up some concerns, and the kid is like completely disconnected and just scrolling through TikTok because for them that is more important, or they're texting their friends. And so I feel like sometimes the screen just allows people to like ignore the person that's in front of them physically.
I could agree with all that, and I have seen that. And just kind of give the challenges, same thing as a parent. I actually just had to go in a couple TVs. Might not necessarily be the whole technology, but specific apps like YouTube. So, a couple TVs no longer allowed to have YouTube. Couple tablets no longer because when it was time to get off of it for whatever reason, the behavior started showing. I said, nope, not dealing with it, and we tried again later on at a point in time when we thought the child was being more mature, and then the behavior started to exacerbate again. And then for me to how much time do I spend on it? I can honestly say it depends on the day. So Friday, certain things I like to listen to populate on YouTube, whether it's a podcast or something. So might be a bit more. Or when I was studying for a procedure I just had, I was on it a bit more, gathering information. But usually, when I'm done with work and I know I don't have to I get yelled at a lot. I'll take off my watch, leave my phone, I take my metas off, and I keep getting, I'm trying to call you. I got you all these gadgets, and you never have your phone. I'm from the generation where I don't really like to be that connected or really followed around. Maybe that's a little paranoia. If I'm not working, I'm not expecting to make money. You can leave a message or shoot me a text, or I have two teenagers who have phones if you're trying to find me. That's just my thing, and it goes around with it. Before we move on, Anika, I see your hand.
And I'm sorry it's loud. My son has a wrestling tournament right now, so I apologize ahead of time if you hear any whistles in the background. I was gonna say, I'm on my phone, but it's mostly if I'm checking like an email or something like that, or texting. I try to keep all that down somewhat. Um, I prefer texting than sometimes talking. But I play games a lot, so I tend to be playing my games. So that's kind of like how I get rid of some of that stress. I like Monopoly Go, Scrabble. I've got a couple of those on there.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I do use my laptop if I want to use Netflix on the go or something like that, or Hulu. It does, and I see somebody says paying bills. Absolutely, unfortunately. And it's funny, like even when we say us, and it's funny even with our children, where remember how they said they want them to do less technology, but yet you gave them all laptops or
Mhm.
iPads, and they have to use them all day long. So that's even funnier. But yeah,
Yeah, that's the
so
irony in it. It's ridiculous.
Just like I
Right.
wouldn't have been on mine today, but because of this, I'm on it for a little while.
Right. And you know it's funny when I was even for me, this how I know I'm actually decently good. When I was in my procedure, the TV was only on when my wife came to visit me. Other than that, I left it alone. Unless one's my phone's usually always on silent. Even in the hospital, like I really didn't want to be bothered. So it's even when I'm home now, unless I'm watching a show that we're into, eh,
Well,
I gotta
about
let it
that,
be.
when I had my last son, because I didn't want TVs. I don't usually watch the TV anyways. And it was funny where the lady's like, well, we need you to not be stressed. I said, well, being on Facebook is not causing me stress. I literally was in labor, like playing on my phone. So
Right.
it's funny when they say, you can't, you shouldn't be on them, but that actually calmed me because I was in touch with people and I was like, not there yet, almost there. Yeah, okay. It was kind of, connections, they do matter.
Definitely. All right. So, what is passive screen time? We all know it's watching videos or television, however, we're acquiring this information or entertaining our thoughts. Again, endless thoughtless scrolling on social media. I hate to throw my wife on the bus. She's a victim of that. Watching content without interactions. There's a lot of you cannot take a break. You can't hear what's going on around you. And what really is the issue with it is how much. It's not why. It's how often you're doing this, right? So it's the extended periods of time and how withdrawn are you. So keep in mind that not all screen time is equal. And cognitive passive screen time, it usually involves little cognitive engagement, meaning we're not really is we really kind of regress down to that basics of I'm watching this game, I'm watching this, nothing else matters. You're not getting any knowledge, you're not thinking outside the box. So the effects on the mental health and the excessive passive screen time may be associated with increased anxiety. This is something I've started seeing with my son from young. Again, he was right before COVID. COVID happened, so school, everything was online. Children at the age of 8 and 9 started getting cell phones, but while also increasing that, the availability of information, communication, the internet, anxiety increased. Why? You started increasing more dopamine spills in your brain. So the addiction started running, and no one started looking at it as what it was. Depressive symptoms. Why? Multitude of reasons. We cannot pinpoint one. It's all depending on age, mental and emotional development, and what's being viewed. And then again, we have to look at possible cyberbullying. Emotional dysregulation. What has happened with the introduction of technology? And I've always said this from young. More technology to me appears to develop more mental health situations. So one of these big ones because of the situation with COVID did, the dysregulations and emotions. Emotions and logic are continuously blurred. There used to be a fine line. Obviously, we understand that there are shades of gray, but that also takes time for us to kind of take a step back, count to 10, and realize what moment we're in. Um, Youth, depending on what and how you grew up, not saying was necessarily the best, but we were able to read a room, we were able to be quiet when we're thinking about something. Some of us had explosions, right? No one's There's always exceptions to the rules. But now with the technology and the stimulation, overstimulation, the idea of what fantasy and what real is interacting in their thought processes in ways where they can't regulate their emotions when they get upset, losing a game, arguing with someone in roadblocks, and then what's happening inside the home, whether it's having to do a homework, doing a chore, fighting with a friend. There's no boundaries anymore because there's no regular identity of what's actually taking place. Sleep disturbances is a huge one. So what we had to do in my home was you have to read, do your homework, do your chores, clean up, and shower. At 11 o'clock, you get read device till about 2. After that, find some other activity to do. I don't care if it's working out, cleaning the yard, playing in the yard. doing something else. After dinner, you can have your electronics for another 2 hours. Then that leaves about an hour and a half to 2 hours between us reading together, maybe watching a movie together. But to kind of get you away from the stimuli, because a lot of what happens is, especially if they're happy, they're so hyped up from it. The dopamine is too fast. If you don't give them time to calm that down, it takes a lot longer for them to get it out of their system. Thus, you start having these arguments. Kids keep getting up. And again, other dysregulations that normally wouldn't happen because of too much visual excitement. Reduced self-esteem is a huge one, especially we've been seeing now, especially if you hear or seeing commercials about imaging, because we're such a socialized platform on body imaging is on both a male and female. That self-esteem is real. And if we don't talk to our children and understand what self-esteem is, this is where they're learning it from. And again, without proper guidance and understanding, leads to additional mental health concerns and behavioral outbursts. Lack of social skills is one of my pet peeves. I still have children who can't ask for a napkin in a supermarket or a restaurant because they're so used to like this that they're very intimidated when they shouldn't be. I had to start forcing my son when he has money, when we go out shopping, he wants to buy something. You're going to go ahead of me, talk to this person. What do I do? Ask him how much this costs. Read it on the screen. We have to interact with each other. This is what it looks like. Another issue I have is looking for identity. It was one thing to try and find your identity without social media. Now, who are you? Who do you want to be? And there's so many people chasing clout for the more modern word. Um, Kids are lost, and that goes to identity. It's not just about how I look; it's who you are. It could be. It's now a racial thing at times. It's a gender thing now. Who are you is one of those questions, and know thyself is one of my favorite, one of those Latin sayings. And our generations now are struggling because of how much society's telling you who you should be or what you should aspire to be. So we're going to go through some of our potential challenges that we face. Short attention span, ADHD or ADD, excuse me, appears to be on the rise. Is it really necessarily due to technology? Possibly, but I just asked you to do something. I forgot. How do you forget to clean your room? You're in your room right now. You're standing in the mess, and this is something that you're going to go through. Or you didn't do your homework. I asked you to get off your phone, do your homework. You didn't tell me. No, I told you. But when? Do I have to walk around with a police cam? These things are actually happening now. And it's starting to show on our children's test scores and things along that nature. Now you're having schools having to lock up phones. Just period difficulty focusing. Because the focusing, is it time to get my tablet? Is it time to get my phone? Who's texting me? Who posted what? The focus is never on what's on the now and what can benefit their lives. Increased positivity, as we talked about, it's easier to get angry, easier to watch them get sad, especially when the number one punishment that we can do now as parents is take away all the electronics. And trust me, it works. And then you start seeing all these behaviors either flare up or now all of a sudden they're starting to listen. I swear, I believe my children are better people the least time they have their electronics with them because I get to see and speak to who they are, which they're usually trying to rush to get rid of the table from the dinner table to go back on social media to play a game or watch somebody else play a game. Um, Challenges with task and completion. If anybody has children, especially teenagers, I don't know if you give them chores. It takes my kids, usual, especially one of them, usually anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour to do any chore, whether it's wiping down the table and vacuuming the floor to actually loading the dishwasher. Why? I have no idea. But it takes so long to just get this done. Oh, I have to write 4 paragraphs. You're in accelerated school. Why are you not sitting down doing this? And you just watch them doing chores, holding their phone. It just takes longer. Reduce frustration tolerance. again, it's one of these emotional things because people don't recognize the addiction and what hormones are released or overly released. Frustration tolerance is almost not exist is evident that it's going to present itself in these ways unless you nip it in the bud now. So um, things that a child could probably get over in the 90s is not happening now, usually, not to generalize. Making friends is one of those hard situations I'm seeing now. Unless your children are playing sports or part of a club, um, a lot of our youth feel very isolated and growing up very socially awkward because they think there's supposed to be some equation to making friends. And give an example, my son was, how do you do it? No, we just played sports together and someone laughed and we told jokes and eventually started to learn likes and dislikes. It wasn't, I didn't come up in a time when it's like, hi, my name is TJ. You want to be my friend? I'm like, I don't know if that's how you think life is supposed to be, but that's not how it was. Common interest, if you guys start laughing together in class or something, usually that's usually the icebreaker if you allow it. But if you continue to stand outside, and that's what's usually happening. Or they can only be friends socially on the phone, but when it comes in person, they're still talking to each other, sitting right next to each other, but on that phone. Understanding social cues is one of my big ones. A lot of our youth nowadays cannot read a room. Um, Inappropriate things at the worst of times, or just someone's upset and continue to start poking the bear because we're not socially evolved, which we are social animals, but together there's a disconnect. And then they start freaking out when you try to correct them on a certain situation or behavior and why or how they could have approached it. And now they're all taking it as a defense as opposed to something they should be learning. And I, as a parent, always try and bring this back to you're going to be in the work world. So unless you're getting a remote job to say are becoming fewer, unless you're going to be some type of computer techie, you're going to have to learn to socialize a bit better. You're going to have to learn that if you're working in a team, read the room and how to collaborate. Because if not, it will make or break your chances of promoting, getting the job, keeping the job, and also talks about relationships. Um, but this is something that our youth are outside of what I'm seeing who are not engaged in some type of group activity are having a hard time uh, socializing. So screen time and sleep. Technology can disrupt sleep on a multitude of levels, from fluorescent lights to just having the lights on from your TV that just shines even when it's off. Um, these are all interfering with your kids and yourselves. But now let's look at your delayed bedtime. Sometimes whatever you're scrolling is really funny. Sometimes whatever you're scrolling for is something you're really into. Sometimes your emotions took you somewhere, whether you're happy or sad. Our kids are the same way. The stimulus is there. You're being fed something that keeps you reading or observing it, and thus you're losing sleep. Your quality is reduced. Why? Even the lights in your room, the radiation from your devices all play an eccentric role in how your body operates. So it doesn't help if you have city lights outside your window. It doesn't help if you have night lights on, uh, lights beaming from your phone, TV, PlayStation constantly in your room. These things will mess and have scientifically studied show that messes with REM and other aspects of your sleep. Difficulty falling asleep, too much stimulation, as I stated before, as we've seen in our children, especially they're having a hard time falling asleep. Thus, you will see more children falling asleep in school or other activities which they shouldn't be. So, too much access to these technologies, we're all seeing it. Exactly as I said before, the increased daytime fatigue. My kids will tell me, "Oh, I'm so tired." I know why. You were on your phone till like 12 in the morning, 2 in the morning. No, I wasn't. Yeah, you were. That's why your phone is at 20% because you didn't charge it. There's certain things that are showing, and there's always these excuses and why I need to stay home. But that sleep is important. This is why another reason why that attention span is lacking when it comes to test taking time and regents exams, things along that nature. So let's bring it to a group discussion. What related sleep concerns have families shared with you?
I think the biggest one really is that screen time, and especially the technology, because TikTok has taken over with a lot of them. Because if you've noticed some of the trends and things that they say and they do, you can tell if they've been on like TikTok, because if it's on TikTok, it's like that's the encyclopedia, that's gold. Um, I think that's the biggest thing. And then it's they have to be connected with their friends. It's always like, oh, and Snapchat. Snapchat is huge too. It's like always got to snap, always got to see what's going on with my friends, like 24/7. I think
Mm.
that's like the biggest thing. So I mean, it's good that some schools take them, some that you just have to have it off. I know with my son's school, they just have to have them off and out of sight. You know, so if they need to, but you can see the kids like during passing, they're at their lockers trying to sneak a text or something. So I think that's big too. And then sometimes the lack of sleep, and it's not always technology. I think it's just dealing with everyday stressors and just different peer things that they're dealing with as well.
We could touch on that one in a bit. Thank you for that, Christy. I see your hand.
I was just gonna say, I know personally, if I'm especially TikTok, if I watch TikTok before I go to bed, like it's not gonna happen, sleep. Um, so I have to be really mindful about when I watch TikTok. And Anthony said in the chat that daytime fatigue due to the long hours of doom scrolling.
Yeah. Erica.
Funny because I don't ever hear my parents noticing about screen time and the effects on their kids. And it's the kids have uh, like an almost odd awareness and have posted their crimes on Instagram or TikTok that they don't even like the whole society doesn't even really notice the
Well,
difference between it's really strange, it's really sad. We go for
so,
drives and nobody knows where we went.
and here's that other thing that, not necessarily technology, but it plays a role, right? If you're unaware, we're also living in a generation where kids and parents are relatively closer in age than they ever have been before. So that means the stuff that they're watching and experiencing and engaging in is relatively similar. So when they don't, if you don't see it as something negative, you're going to miss the signs. Then you also have parents where, if you're like me in grad school and I work, and sometimes you might miss stuff because they're being quiet, and you needed that peace and quiet. But also a year or two, you've been quiet for too long. I got to go check to see what you're doing, see what you're watching. And I got to also go through your phone real quick. I also know someone brought about stresses. Stresses are always, it's going to happen. Good and bad stress is inevitable. I don't want us to think of it as an excuse for the lack of sleep, though it is, and these are outliers as well, right? So not all of these, everything that we discuss, these are prevalent. There's scientific studies, and there will always be outliers to this. But I also believe and find that nowadays with the whole um, the difference in how children are supposed to be raised due to governmental standards, it's easy to throw I'm just stressed around, whereas I don't want to do it because I don't feel like it. Whereas we're other generations where we understood that if we didn't try to, we were going to fail. Everyone is aspiring now to follow even more so with TikTok, with Snapchat, what's going on. That's a self-inflicted stress. That's not necessarily I'm stressed because Regis is hard. These are I'm trying to fit in the best way I can. And the stress is now carrying over because I'm not sure what to do because I don't know who I am anymore or who I'm supposed to be. So there's so many factors. And I want to keep us just aware of what this looks like because it's impact on their families' relationships, right? We experience a lot of families, less communication more than ever, right? Yes and no answers. There's no open-ended questions. Um, or it's about how stressful my day was. Don't bother me. There might be certain situations going on, as we said before, stress is here, but if we do not take the time to unplug, and this is something we do every night, as has spoken in a few other past TAs, we sit down and have open discussion. How was your day? What went well? What didn't go well? Any stories that went on? And I mean, this, especially from the 4-year-old, forget about it. Um, but it gives them a chance to feel heard, and they always feel heard because trust me, especially when we tell them it's time to take away that tablet, the phone, they always have something to say. But if you don't have or place these boundaries, you're gonna have less communication, don't know what's going on, and then it might be not saying anything is too late, but a situation that was arising. Let's say it could be eating habit, it could be self-image habit, it could be bullying self. You could have caught it earlier, but the communication wasn't there. Fewer shared activities. I know a lot of families come home and they're all on the phone. I'm like, wow, how are we all in the same living room, supposed to be watching a movie, but everyone's watching something different on their phone? Uh, so I don't want to do anything. I'd rather stay home. I want to be in the bed. Let's go out to the museum. Is it? Nope, they don't even want to do that. Something about this phone unless it dies. Increased conflicts what happened too, especially I say amongst siblings. If anyone has siblings, I had 8 sisters and one brother, so we had our own conflicts. But as we grew up and had children, watch you just see some of these internal conflicts are happening a bit more. And again, a lot of it is not regulated and understood why this is happening. There's no real teaching of how to check these emotions that you're experiencing, because anything that's on TikTok, anything that's on Snapchat, or whatever social media might dictate certain conflicts as normal. And there's no real sense of conflict resolution anymore because we've just been so desensitized and separated from each other. Now, another one's reduced emotional connection. Um, my daughter comes home sometimes and tells me in tears, I love you so much. Thank you for what you do. I'm like, well, what happened, baby? What's going on? And she tells me, I see just how her friends talk to their parents, and that I hate you, or some of them hit their parents in front. And she's like, I don't understand what's going on. My parents don't do this, so there's something going on in certain homes, and kids are hit and scream and only calm down till they get the scream, till they get their way. So parents aren't even given a chance to be a parent, or refusing to, or giving in to make this easier. Thus, you are creating an emotionally damaging environment where there's no form of communication, or maybe even that attachment of love, that those words become a lot fewer. And I know in my house, corny to some people, tell my kids I love them all the time in different languages, and I tell them how amazing they are. Even when I'm proud of you because you did this. I'm specific in what I do it. I don't want to generalize too much. Hi, baby. See that? But these things they matter, and that's why it's important for me to have that family relationship. One thing I've noticed with a lot of our teens, there's a lack of responsibility and accountability because of this technology that's in front of them. It helps to direct and create an emotional instability in our thought process. So when they are being corrected, they cannot hear you for the life of them. And then you could kind of train yourself to ask so many different ways, so many different questions on how you could do this, and it's still going to be some fight with somebody else's fault. Somebody else did it. You should have did this. You should have reminded me. And less empathy. That's a big one, especially for the type of work that we're in. Um, I've seen children get hurt and kids have no feelings for it, unless it's some of the answers. It's like, oh well, or if you're upset with them because they hurt your feelings, well, it's not my fault you felt this way. Whereas, again, if you look at previous generations, empathy is definitely something that you had to learn, but you got to experience it more. Where these children have a tendency, they might want to hurt their siblings, right? They fight. Well, they started it. They shouldn't have done this. Um, so when we are utilizing, excuse me, when we are so desensitized by the separation of self and family and society, these are these are how some of these relationships are being impacted with the families. And again, these are specific examples, uh, but there's a multitude of reasons why it can happen. I've also seen in studies have showed children have more entitlement. For some reason, the phone has opened more doors to believing they should have more access to more apps, to more Roblox money, to more items to dress for the occasion of what they need to identify with their peers, and whatever that's going to look like. That they don't have to work for anything; it should just be given. And lastly, the inability to make and or keep friends. Some of our children are having the hardest time keeping friends. They go in and out the window because again, social cues are unread, feelings are hurt, and no one's really learning how to apologize, or everything is taken as a direct offense, as opposed to seeing or wanting to see that there's usually two sides or three sides to the story. There's your truth, their truth, and the whole truth. And how do we compromise? And a lot of that has been kind of pushed to the side for the most part. And I've seen my children come home. This was my best friend. His best friend did something like this, and now we're not friends anymore. Well, they should have known something. Well, what did you do? Communicate this? No. Communication is the biggest piece and brings it back to the whole family impact relationship. If we're not willing to communicate with our children, and my kids would call it nagging, but to remind them why we do the things we do, why it's important to have regulations, why it's important to treat people right. You got to keep planting these seeds.
TJ, I was just going to jump in and read some of the comments.
Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, so Claudia had said that she's seen a lot of this information with kids, the lack of empathy and entitlement. Mimi mentions the desensitization of the human experience. Anika says that she believes that the lack of communication leads to searching the internet for the communication, acceptance, and belonging. Michelle mentions that she has families that their child stays up all night and then they can't get up for school, and then they choose not to take the phone away because they don't want to argue with their children. She had one 14-year-old who got too involved with Discord, and it led to a 5-day suspension and a manifestation meeting. Anthony mentions that he thinks it's slowly and in some cases rapidly affecting us all, and he is worried about what the world might be 10 years from now as technology continues to advance. Annika mentions blue light and turning the screen lights down or getting off the phone 30 to 45 minutes before bed. And then Tiffany had mentioned that she's seen all of the results or consequences that you had mentioned in the outburst that happens when phones and games are taken away.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, well, that's yes, they lost a lot of social engagement and lessons to life, and that's also coming with, I think, parents being challenged how to be parents. I also believe teachers are being challenged how to be teachers. I believe that there's an element that we are missing in communication in these social developments. And I implore people, I'm not saying anything's wrong with emotions or how you feel, but when your communication style is always based upon I feel, there's a disconnect of reality, because it means that your reality or your concerns are more important than what facts and truths are. So what happens with our social development is emotions are taking over, and they're trumping anything that could be factual, and everything's an attack and everyone's against you, or I don't feel a certain way. So now we are developing anxieties and other emotional instabilities because we're lacking in the development and the mentorship of communication styles in the actual human experience. So, in the social development concerns, like I stated before, face to face interactions, little to no eye contact, can't even ask for basic things from the corner store. My kids don't even go to the corner store. I come from a generation you couldn't keep us inside. You just knew you had to come inside when those lights came off, or you heard mom yell. Other than that, that's where the gossip was. Nope, I'm like, you can't even do anything. Um, Play. Oh, I'm so bored. Well, we have a backyard. We got balls. We got equipment to do stuff. No, I don't want to do that. So why don't you go play with these kids in the park? I don't want to do that. Most of my kids won't play with other kids until I play with them first, and then the other kids in the park join us, and I can step back. That's the type of time that I am going through. But at least he's getting it out there to try and teach them to be more social. So I know I'm doing something that I believe that is wrong, and how can I play a part as opposed to just talking about it, right? So my kids are getting better integrating with children playing tag, or they got some weird police and robber games now. They're way different than ours, but the fact that I'm getting them to do this is starting to spread certain seeds, because children do want the stimulation. But a lot of parents either forgot the way, lost the way, or just trying to fit in the community. And my kid has a phone or tablet, iPad. So in that, conflict resolutions are usually jeopardized, because most of the fights will take place on the phone, and many of us understand that communication is often misconstrued via technology, especially if it's via text, or we're doing emails. We all know that words have meanings, and if we're using them out of context, or we're using slang, it's hard to come to any type of resolution when we are upset and dysregulated and not understanding why or how we got to this point. Another concern I had was reading body language. Again, that's reading the room. Um, Most youth nowadays have experienced it. Even some adults, young adults, cannot read someone if they're happy, they're upset. Uh, they're just going through something they might be thinking. And I took the liberty of walking with my son the other day, and he asked me, "How do you do this?" So I said, "Look around you. What do you see? Let's just guess at what's going on. That person looks happy. Look at how they bit into that sandwich. Look how their eyes lit up." A little girl walked by me, smiled, and said hi. I said, "Well, that's a happy child. She doesn't know me, but she feels my energy. She feels my frequency. It must be something nice for this complete stranger, different ethnicity. Hi, and that made me feel good." I said, "These are things that we grew up to pay attention to. And these are things that you should want to grasp onto, because it's not just for society, but it makes us better people. It should make you feel better, but also keeps you away from danger too. If we can read certain aspects, right? Or maybe now is not the time to ask my boss for a raise. Body language can speak volumes. Practicing empathy. That's one thing we work on with my children, using I statements, as opposed to sympathy that a lot of us hear. And not necessarily sympathy is always wrong, but can be misinterpreted as being brushed off. And how are we empathetic to someone who's hurting or going through something? Or what questions to ask when someone's going. So these are things that are often overlooked, or just not trained on how to do anymore, because, again, our influences in education are coming from the phone. Peer value support. I know a lot of the reasons why we didn't do what we did was because we had some of our peers pull our coats. "Hey, man, that wasn't cool what you did. You shouldn't talk to your mom like that." Or, and I think a lot of the times, what's going on now, our youth are afraid of hearing what our peers might think about us. That it's easier to keep them away and not really want to socialize, because it could really produce a real sight on who this person is, the make believe person that we're making ourselves out to be. I believe that in our time with less technology, it was really hard to fake the funk. You faked it till you make it, but it was harder to do so. Whereas when you're behind the screen, it's a lot easier to hide. So then, even getting support, but you might not even understand what type of support you need and who's actually your peer nowadays, because of whatever's being displayed in the communication. It's not necessarily the right style in a way that's going to convey the needs, wants, and then conclusions that we're looking for. Thus, you start seeing that revolving door of anxieties, depressions, angers, shutting down, closing off, etc. Any questions before we move on?
I just want to read what Mimi had put in the chat. Um, a lot of kids are missing the social engagement and lessons that come from needing to navigate friendships from playing and interacting the way previous generations have. We've learned to understand body language and tone of voice through phone calls and in-person conversations. So many of these cues are missing from texting and social media interactions. Absolutely. And I just said that I was very upset when I couldn't walk to my corner store and during rush hour.
All
It
right. I used
was
to love
like
sitting down
heartbreaking.
and people watch. That was my thing. I didn't
Yes.
have to go far. I just sat on the
Yep.
stuff. They don't even want to do that. So, warning signs families may notice or should notice, right? So, let's go look at some potential red flags. That irritability, I put as number one when devices are removed. It shouldn't be that way. I've seen kids. I remember it's happened when I was younger too in the '90s, especially when they were uh, was it solo children? They didn't have siblings. If their parents told them no, the Nintendo was taken away. Oh man! But now it's that same type of behavior. It doesn't matter if you're independent, well, single child, or if you are addicted, the behaviors are there. Uh, Decline academic performance. Some children have that go get them, you don't need to worry about them, but a lot of the distraction is too much. Or they're trying to use that, phone to get the answers. But now that they don't have the phone, and if you ever heard a lot of these children speak nowadays, you're using acronyms, not even complete sentences. Have you ever seen a lot of these essays being written in school? I don't know how you are passing. Communication, the performance is really dwindling because of all that excitement. Again, sleep difficulties. Your child keeps complaining that they're tired every day. What's in their room? Is there a time limit? Things along that nature. Withdrawal from family activities, the things that your children used to love to do, whether that was going camping, family vacations in the summer, going to the beach. They just want to stay inside and on their phones and in their PJs. It's a warning sign. If your child was usually interested in a sport, dancing, going out with their friends, and suddenly that stopped. And it's been a long period of time. Not just sometimes you go through life, right? Sometimes you just don't feel like it. But with youth, you kind of those patterns are a bit more evident than as opposed to sometimes I believe I need to detach. Increased isolation. I've seen it a lot. Again, less friends are being made, less friends are being kept, and believing. I've started even to see that they start judging other people, and that's why they're not friends with them. It's easy to point out as opposed to look within. Therefore, it's easier to isolate as opposed to work on yourself to kind of uh, interact effectively with your peers and environment. Frequent meltdowns when screen is removed. I've seen behaviors change. I promise I will don't. As soon as you say I will take this away, they know what they're supposed to be doing. They heard you. They're willing to get it done. But as soon as they have it and you ask them for something, they're stagnant or it never gets done. Pay attention to these meltdowns. It does mean that there's a chemical imbalance going on. And now we need to start paying attention to how we're going to regulate this effectively. Playing outside of that device in their hand, playing independently. Most of us on this chat, I believe, had some type of imagination when we were kids, even in our teen years. Whether it's throwing a ball against the wall, whether it's playing with your dollhouse or playing in the garden, playing in the dirt, making. Um, Nowadays, these children appear to be bored more consecutively than not. But why are you bored? Because now all of a sudden I know I'm always my job is not to entertain you. It's one thing when you're a baby, but you're late middle schooler, you're a teenager now. You should be able to kind of figure out things that could entertain yourself. But outside of that, if no one's stimulating them, no one's paying for it, you start seeing a lack of I don't know what to do with myself. And again, less interest in toys and books or outdoor play. That part drives me crazy. I love being outside. Um, they ask for all these toys for Christmas and their birthdays. And again, once that day is done, it's just a pile up. It's a pile up. So these are things to, we should definitely, these are red flags. Don't look at these things, oh, they're just being a kid or they're outgrowing stuff. These patterns are consecutively evolving with who they are. Um, and watching without reacting or engaging. So if they are always on a screen and there's nothing, in my words, I would like to say educational, and that doesn't necessarily mean they picked up biology, but if it's just always some nonsense, there's something they don't have to engage in, something that's always taking their mind out of a reality for like extended periods of time. It's a huge red flag. So, emotional and social consequences to this. We've seen less empathy and reduced emotional recognition of what's going on internally at home, with themselves, with their peers, if they have any friends. And in that, choices and consequences. It seems to be very um, distant connection between if I make this choice, there's going to be an effect, cause and effect. So another issue is trouble with self-soothing and managing boredom. Everything's supposed to be in this device, and this device works, right? Tell live visions, and then you have these iPhones. I'm keeping my iPhone to distract, keep you away from what's around you. A lot, especially our younger children, are going to mimic inappropriate behavior seen online. You have all these type of hackers and weirdos hopping into kid platforms, and now you have children discussing things that would never have been discussed about at the age of 4 or 5, outside of obviously outliers of traumas and experiences. A lot of these children are using words and displaying activities that shouldn't be in this age forum. Again, difficulty connecting real world relationships. It's easy to talk crap on the phone. It's easy to talk love on the phone. But then when you get to meet this person, the frequency is off. Someone shuts down more. Uh, some other impulsive behaviors might happen. So tics might start developing. Can I keep eye contact? Verbiage becomes a lot less because of the stress that's now developed because of our inability to communicate. Um, we started seeing studies that showing more physical and behavioral impacts. Stated blue light, so it was discussed earlier in the chat. Thank you. Sleep disturbances, increase in risk of obesity due to physical inactivity. We've started seeing that a lot more. There's been a drop of individuals participating in sports, even just regular gym class. There's more excuses more than ever. Um, and so now you're just sitting down, and especially with our remote jobs too, we're doing this to ourselves, and our children think this is normal. More tantrums and irritability and less attention issues. Um, Again, less opportunity to understand regulations, what it means to be irritable, how to address irritability, and again, these distractions are huge attention issues. Um, the dependency on screens for stimulation. Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Can I have my phone? It drives me crazy. But this is, that's they're always bored. So my thing at home is if you're bored, pick up a book. Drives them crazy, but you're going to pick up a book and you're going to learn something. And we have all types of book in my home, anything from spirituality to fairy tales to the human body to do-it-yourself projects to how to live off grid. You name it, I have it. So if you're bored, let's learn something because you shouldn't be bored. You should be learning something every day. Obesity is huge, especially with our children. Just anecdotal and studies. A lot of these children are bigger than most adults I started seeing nowadays. Um, Again, if you're not pushing your child to be active, you're not active, they're not seeing you. This is also watched and learned behavior. And again, if anybody's understanding about food, you might not necessarily be feeding them McDonald's every day, but if you're feeding them food with empty calories, your body thinks you're starving. So now you're sitting here watching this, your body's storing whatever food you're feeding yourself, into fat, and now we're developing obesity subconsciously. Another issue we've seen, especially if you're giving your phone or technology to a child before certain ages, speech development is an issue. I remember my son had, would get so upset because he would try and articulate things at the age of 3 and 4. This is before I came along when he was about 4. But because he couldn't, or we couldn't understand what he was saying, the temper tantrums are crazy. Kid was given a tablet early and then also given a TV. Mom had to work, had a babysitter. What did the babysitter do? Put him in front of a tablet and TV. So, in essence, you might think they might be learning how to speak because they're watching people communicate, but that's not what happened. There was some of the correct how to use the tongue, how to sound pronunciations, things along that nature. So, speech development became a thing and how to find services. Mental illnesses, as you said before, you start seeing these legal ads now. People are getting more depressed. People are having suicidal thoughts due to what's being on social media. And some people are so involved in it that they're allowing it to affect their life, to make dangerous decisions and choices, whether it's substance abuse and or other types of abuse of self, and or lack of understanding of self and induced mental disabilities that are now developing because of our influences. Behavioral issues is a lot more aggression is starting to happen, a lot more outbursts and anger, a lot more, for my observation, foul language being used between these young individuals out openly. I remember kids used to try and be in a huddle with their friends and try and keep it on the low. It doesn't matter who you are. These kids they're talking. Educational problems or developments. Some of these are helping to induce learning disabilities because they're not willing to learn outside of what's in front of them. So if you cannot learn to obtain adequate information that's going to help you be successful and deal with developing of yourself, um, education is as we're starting to see, a lot of these youngsters are being passed because no child left behind. But in that, we're starting to see some maybe needed to repeat a course because they haven't grasped basic English language or basic high school math where you could work at McDonald's. Um, these are evident, and it's becoming more and more of a real problem in today's society. And then delayed motor skills, and i.e., hand strength, because we're only using our thumbs. We thought, oh, maybe there might be, better at doing things. They're not using keyboards. So now when it comes time to hold a pen or a pencil or even a fork or a spoon properly, they're having the hardest time to manipulate certain objects that should have been easy or easier at the age of 2, 3, and 4 in that development. You're finding hand coordination issues at the ages of 9, 10 to 15 years of age now. And that's due to the fact there's no, I would like to say, I would love to see back penmanship of writing in cursive come back because that definitely helps, manipulate the environment with my fingers along with typing on a keyboard. I had to learn the movement individually, whereas now it's just all thumb written. So we're moving towards a family peer advocacy role and what that looks like. So what can FPAs do outside of learning from ourselves, right? We know what's going on. Listen and confirm the concerns. Take note of what's being said and ask open questions. Make sure we grasp what's going on inside that home. Let's find the resources that are out there. There's a ton of resources. And I implore you, if you can, if this is an issue, bring some of these statistics of what's going on and what you're seeing. So it doesn't just look like we're outsiders, just the professionals coming in. There's articles being written, there's numbers showing that your child could develop in a more positive light than the situations you might be facing. Because if we don't look at it like this, these are statistics showing where and how children are being harmed, right? So that's also choosing our verbiage. So it doesn't look like we're attacking them, but we're concerned with you. And there's ways to look about it. And how do we gather this information? So let's support the goal setting. We might have to come up with some type of strategic plan to start setting up these boundaries with phone, tablet, TV usage, etc. Let's encourage healthy routines. It's gonna might have to take us to join them, whether it's gonna be for that walk around the block after dinner. You probably should walk for a bit after dinner. Helps digestion, moves gas. Just a way to kind of get that stimulation. Just look at our environments, especially if you have beautiful nature. If you're My son's into architect, so I might take him to a different neighborhood to walk around. I want to introduce him to handball. Basketball was too much. Soccer he didn't like. Handball can be it's more individualized, but it can be a group effort. But see me doing it, you might want to pick something up and understand why it's important to stimulate yourself in a different routine. And then it promotes family communication. Let's go for a walk. Let's check in and see where you're at without the phone. And trust me, they will start talking eventually. Put your phones away. My mom has a rule on her house. If you're in the kitchen, no phone unless it's an emergency. The grandkids hate it, my kid, but I understand and it works. So what should we not do? Let's not diagnose a condition. That's not what we're doing. Hey, I noticed you said your child was, what behaviors have you noticed did it stem from? Do you notice, ask these questions. Have you noticed your child getting more angry when it's time to put up the phone? You're not diagnosing, you're getting the parents to give you the answer and see, check in, right? Let's not diagnose because that's not what we do. We're not providing therapy for them. It's not our role. We're to be empathetic. We're to share a possible lived experience that we've had. But electronics have done it. What steps we or routes we might have taken to help try and grab some control of this for healthier outcomes. And then we don't want to prescribe interventions outside the scope of work. There's a difference between prescribing and then collaborating. We want our families to be driven. Would you like this person to be involved, this organization to be involved that might have more tools than I do? But we're not prescribing anything. Do not make a decision for a family. Well, I think you should do this. That's not our job, right? We should, well, studies have shown if parents are willing to set aside time for A, B, and C, you might have a healthier outcome and your child might respond more positively. You get them to think about what you're saying in a healing effect, right? We're not solution. That's that problem that sometimes we have as FPAs. We want to have the solutions, and we might have them, but we also know as people that a lot of people are reluctant to take that criticism if they didn't think they came up with it themselves. But also, we don't want to be doing the work for them either, right? Because then you're going to keep being called on when they need to start learning empowerment and self advocacy. And again, I threw in Blue Beetle. He's a rarity. I don't know if people have other comics, but we're not heroes, right? And it's like that saying, sometimes it's not about being a hero. It's just about providing communal safety and information, and we could do that without trying to be stars because that's ultimately what we're not trying to be. We're humans too. We've been through it. We're just giving you the information that helped us get to another level. Also, what we do, we help families create healthy technology boundaries. So let's talk about what it looks like to have a device-free meal. So when we're doing these strategies, we just talk about what the outcomes could look like. We're not taking them away. We're just showing them if this happens, if you look at it this way, you'll start to create these healthier boundaries and communication and emotional stability can start to actually flourish appropriately. Technology-free bedrooms. I know it's hard. My house is a TV in every room, but we manage the TV time, and I'm willing to. I'm that type of parent will take the power cord and leave the TV in there just for you to look at. Try me if you want to. Same thing. Like, I'll take your, the phone and leave your charger there. If you cannot abide by some of these things, this is what I do. Family media agreements. There's certain things that my children are allowed to watch. I just had to delete YouTube off a few channels, especially first thing in the morning. You're not supposed to be watching somewhere. You can watch something educational, um, but you need to pause. It's really important. Schedule those screen breaks. Give examples that might well work for you. 11 to 2 in my house. And then we have from after dinner from like about 6 to 8, 6 to 9. Weekends a bit more free with it, but generally Monday through Friday, or unless it's your birthday, we have screen breaks. And just to keep you connected with us. And then modeling healthy habits. They see, I get yelled at all the time. How come you don't have your phone? I don't want it on me all the time. I work from 3 screens, 5 days a week. I have 2 phones. I have all. I do love technology, but I also know that it's not good for you, and I need a break. And I don't like people having that much access to it. So we're gonna have a little discussion. Creating family media plans. Um, Anyone come off speaker? Throw in the chat. What technology challenges might a family face? 2, what realistic solutions can be implemented? And then 3, and how could you, as your FPA, being the FPA, support the family? Just 1 or 2 people, or you could put it in the chat.
So for us, one of the technology challenges is with kids in high school, everything is technology now. So there's no more books, it's all computers. So, one of the things we struggle with is, you know, homework is they're in front of screens. So like finding time to do homework, we try to limit the screen time when they come home, like, well, I have to be on my computer, I have homework. So really kind of checking in on that and doing handwritten stuff when we can, but kind of watching that because everything is technology now. They have no more books and it's just different. So it's kind of trying to balance it out in a battle. So
Yeah, thank you. Let's see. We have setting for America, setting aside time for family time as something positive is planned, even if it's 15 minutes to start. Yeah. So these are just like questions. I used to just copy some of these things down for to bring back to your families, kind of for you to keep note and help you with your, working with your families who might be going through some of these things. Because usually just a couple of questions can get that wheel turning and can get families to start thinking in a different route. The children will appreciate it later on, trust me. So, what is active screen time? It involves active engagement, participation, or creativity. So, me as a parent, if it's one of my children, she loves drawing. So, there's some of these how to draw and paint apps I'm a fan of. It's educational, or those reading. What does that look like for the ABC Mouse? Certain things I'm good with, right? So educational games and apps. Let's look into that because as long as it's not necessarily passive, then you can still utilize it to learn. Visual learning aids in the homework. Obviously, some of our homeworks are done online. We can't exclude them from that. Creating digital art, music, or videos. My son goes to the school, does his coding. He got into the STEM program. They're learning to build and do technology. So certain things if he's researching, I'm down for. Let's be active with it. The coding and technology. If family members call, video chatting with family and friends, especially if they're healthy conversations with their peers, I'm down. But that's limited too. You can't be on the phone 3, 4, 5 hours. And then interactive fitness and movement programs. Sometimes we can't afford to go to the gym. The gym is too far, whether that's YouTube. It's one of those ones where you can pull up a video, do some living room exercises, and get your kids involved. Those are great ways to have some active screen time and to do things together with your family. So we're going to do active versus passive screen time. So just keep in mind because families will question it and have shades of gray, right? But active screen time encourages the participation of others. It's not just sitting there playing an aimless game, watching somebody do something, or watching somebody else play a game. It promotes learning and creativity. requires thinking and engagement, supports skill development. So again, educational apps, virtual classes, and creating content. A lot of us in the roles that we do, we create content, we share with our families, we share with our peers. The passive screen time, it encourages just observation about any consequence to what information was bestowed upon you and how it's going to affect your life. Primarily entertainment consumption, whether it's was it like Real Wives of Holly, Georgia, or whatever, things like that. And these kids are finding their own versions of these toxic
TJ,
shows.
you're
Uh,
killing me. We're
but
real housewives of insert city.
but it happens, and the kids are finding these random things that you think only adults have. Like no, but and they're learning some things from these. And I'm sorry, that's the only one that came to mind. Obviously, you could tell I don't really watch, but I do have sisters and who have watched, like some of that nonsense. Um, Again, if it requires little interaction, that's a problem. If it doesn't support skill development, they're not learning absolutely anything besides foul language or new slangs. It's not doing anything great for them. And then passive may reduce opportunities for skill development. Like the biggest thing I have with my children is like, why is math so hard, or why I'm struggling here. I'll pay for a tutor. Can we go online and watch these videos? And they will absolutely like not watch the videos or fight with me to go get it. So I'm like, how is this? But you have the audacity to complain when I, have solutions, but you don't have a solution because you haven't learned anything from your past screen time. So again, been watching shows. If you're on vacation, you're sick. Obviously, there's always exceptions to the rules, but been watching shows, endless scrolling, and autoplay videos. Some of these children will watch that same uh, FGTV content. I'm like, listen, you just no, enough. Let's change it. So why does it matter? Is the most important to me, in my opinion, is for your brain development. So that passive screen time may affect your attention and concentration. Also, your ability to not even just consume but preserve new information that's going to be useful. Language development. I have anecdotal experience, and scientific studies have shown the earlier you start handing these devices to the kids, the more language developmental issues you will possibly have. Problem solving abilities. Even with a smartphone, I find it hard for these children to problem solve. Someone else has to have the answers. It was someone else's fault. They'll come and ask you, you have a smartphone. Why don't you look it up? But I'd rather ask you, why am I paying for a bill and $1,000 phone if you're not going to use it to do something productive? Emotional regulation. Again, watching people emotionally regulate themselves on whatever they're watching is not necessarily healthy. Thus, it breeds negative emotional regulation skills and delayed and or lack of social skills, especially if they're not in team activities, programs after school. Everything. The only time they're socializing is when they're in groups in class. You start seeing these social skill development. Hard for them to get jobs. I've seen kids are now bringing their parents to job interviews because their social skills are that poor. These are real things, and these things are happening. Let's make sure our parents or our families are aware that this could be them. Passive screen time reduced time spent on creative play. They forgot that they have a mind that they can use for a multitude of things and be creative and develop things, be the next best engineer, doctors, but everyone's now aspiring to be a YouTuber, content creator, meaning TikTok, not training. Face-to-face social interaction is very minimal or awkward. And then the impact of their attention span, memory, emotional regulation. It's easy to now just say, well, I have ADHD or I'm this and the third. It's easy to blame something else as opposed to really trying to sit in the now and take accountability. Um, but the brain development is actively being delayed, if not learning to use these technologies as proper tools, which they should be. So another question for the group: think about a child or family you have worked with, and what examples of active screen time and passive screen time have you seen, if any, and how did it each affect family functioning if you're aware of any infection, anybody being affected in the family functioning.
So I've supported families in using it as positive engagement, like online games, uh, even, somebody I think mentioned like Monopoly, like my older kids and I would play that sometimes, together. So it can, I feel like, help keep engagement open, but in a way that maybe the kids are more apt to want to. Or even watching a YouTube video that your kid wants to show you, that kind of stuff.
So I think I was lucky. I got out of my working with families in the nick of time before I had to deal with the whole screen time. But I see Pilar, you had a statement, a question.
Yes. So I was working with a family, and they have like a 8-year-old. They have an 8-year-old daughter, and the same issue with the phone. She would fall asleep during at school because she would stay late with her phone, and it was that bad to the point that she didn't want to eat.
Mm,
That she would forget lunch or something like that. And we decided with mom, to incorporate a special interest, something that she liked. Or let's say, oh, well, we're gonna like prepare your favorite food or something. They create a smoothie, something that everything has to be like incorporated child interest because it's working. Still we're working
mm,
on that. Yeah, but it's hard. It's hard.
it is. Thank you. Yes.
In the chat, Annika said a scavenger hunt for information, which I think is so smart. I love that idea. Um, Erica said that she didn't realize that she doesn't address this with families she's working with outside of bullying or trafficking issues. And so I think she's going to try to increase that. And Amanda Frost said that she does this with her own son on Netflix. There's games to play, and you use your phone as the controller. Yeah, one of my favorites. I don't know how age appropriate it is, like what, but like Jackbox, my family will play together. Claudia said, I had a family who used the cell phone as emotional regulation tool when the emergency drill happened at school and she was on the phone and needed to put it away for a few minutes. It turned into a huge meltdown that quickly turned physical. Oh, that's sad.
Okay. So leading towards the strengthening aspect, like yeah, there's certain games you can. Family game night is something we do like once a month. We alternate between the in-laws or my house, or we just have our own family night and we have a bunch of board games, or we have the Wii, so we could do Mario Kart racing stuff like that. So we have things that keep us together. Outdoor activities, the beach is one of them. Parks, another activity uh, we like to do, or just traveling, just randomly pick a state to go to for the weekend. Um, and just like so, creating those core memories. Shared meals. My kids always would love to have their tablets or phones at the table. 99% of the time it's no, unless I'm in a meeting, wife's in a meeting, they're home for whatever, school's out, and I make a quick lunch and I'm not there. I'm like, fine, as long as it keeps you busy and you eat. But generally, no, there's nothing at the table. Creative projects, we have paint night. We have daddy daughter paint night. My son doesn't really like to do that, so we do other stuff together. But put the stuff away and we'll choose an activity, whether it's under the sea or outer space. And we buy the canvases and we do paint stuff. And again, core memories. We read every night together. So that's one thing that I took on from my mother. In community events, we neighborhoods, we have neighborhood festivals. There's sometimes block parties, stuff like that, and we just or go to the Puerto Rican, not the parade. I go to the festival because I go for food, stuff like that. Culturally, if there's one another culture, we'll go create that experience. And that's how we work on strengthening those connections, pass that information on to your families, what might be going on in the neighborhoods. So some tips are screen time. Again, set those daily time limits. 1 hour a day for 2 to 5 year olds is generally acceptable. Um, Go at your leisure. You know your child, obviously, and you know what's working, what's not. Prioritize co-viewing discussion during the screen time. Look over their shoulder. What are you watching? What are you learning? Did you hear anything inappropriate? Encourage breaks and physical movement. I do all the time. Take a break. Time for you to take a shower, clean your room. I'll pay you to go clean the yard. Someone go water my flowers in the front. We're gonna do something. Let's go take a walk. Create screen-free routines through meals and bedtime, and model balanced tech habits. So I do it, and just it's time to not be on your phone. Sometimes they'll see me working out. Well, right now I can't. I'm in recovery, but or I do a little tai chi or something and show that I'm doing other stuff besides being on my phone. So our final thoughts is passive screen time isn't evil, but needs to be managed. Everything should be in moderation, just like eating or any other activity. Encourage real world play, talk, and rest. These things are necessary. I think we get lost in translation, especially about how busy our lives are and how expensive it is to be here. Use tech as a tool, not a babysitter. A lot of us, especially younger parents, might have done that, especially if we weren't raised, proper parents or whatever the situation. We're still learning. I learned to be a father on my own, but I know one thing that is not a babysitter. Trust your instincts. Your child needs you, not just the screen. They need your time, whether that's storytelling, it's you being present, it's you holding them, or just walking down the street holding their hand. Be present as much often as you can, because the more they learn to drift away earlier, the harder it is to bring them back the older that they get. So here's some resources. Take a screenshot real fast. And for sake of time, I don't want to run. I want to leave some room for questions. But the American Academy of Pediatrics for a family media plan. Common Sense Media is another one. The Child Mind Institute has some great information. Local schools and libraries. And ask your pediatrician behavioral health providers. They have a lot of information on this. So these are some things to key takeaways. It's not always harmful, but just make sure it's in moderation. Passive screen time may impact development, mental health, and relationships. Healthy boundaries and promote balance. Family connections remain essential, so be a part of that. And we play an essential role as FPAs in supporting informed family choices. Um, you can have this for yourself. You can answer now if you want. Just for the sake of time, what was one key takeaway from your trainings today? What strategies could you share with your families immediately? And how can FPAs model healthy technology habits in their own lives?
So I just want to mention in the chat, there is Ashley posted a Survey Monkey to just give feedback about what you thought about this training, what you found helpful. If you have any other ideas, she just posted again. Thanks, Ash. Mimi, I don't know if you have a better link for the statewide 2026 job fair, but the link I put in there didn't work.
Christy,
We do.
yeah,
Oh, so
I was able to pull your link up, so maybe copy it. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. We do have the FPA credential 4-day training. Registration is open and we do have some spots still. So if you know somebody who still needs to do that for their professional credential, you can use the link to sign up there. There's the link for the monthly TA training for FPAs. That's what you're in now, but I wanted to share it in case you can sign up for like all of the offerings and then you'll get a reminder.
For the TA call next month, it kind of goes hand in hand with this one. So we talked a lot today about technology. I'm trying to find it.
it's right there on the screen.
Oh, thank you, TJ. I'm checking the checking the chat. So next month we're going to be talking about leveraging technology to support family-driven care. So, sometimes families prefer meeting on Zoom or using technology a bit more. We're going to be talking a little bit about how we can connect with these families when we're using technology. So practical strategies for family care advocates.
And then in the chat also is the link to sign up for our lived experience cafe for FPAs. Anybody who is working as an FPA can join that. And it is sort of an open forum for you to offer support to others. And you bring
Ask
the topics that you
questions.
want to
Yeah,
talk about. What's that?
actually. No, nothing. Sorry.
And then there's also a link for the FPA Supervisors Cafe, and that's the same, but you do have to be a supervisor of FPAs to join that one, but you do not have to be an FPA yourself. And so supervisors just share information, bring topics, and sort of problem solve together and network. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you, everybody. I had a great time with everybody. Anybody have any questions or comments, or before we let you all get back to your wonderful day and weekend coming up?
No, thank you. I really do think that, especially because a lot of parents, when despite the fact that we have one of their kids in placement, that these are skills that with the kids that are home, that to start practicing on that, because I don't have any kids at home anymore. My youngest is 20, almost 22.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just really want to thank you guys, because it is something I need to pay attention to. And TJ, I want to send you an email because somebody you referred to me. I wanted to let you know
Okay.
what happened.